Good evening, everyone. Mike Vukovcan here with another edition of Pitt Panther Talk. On today's show, we're going to have some interesting topics and some stuff that I know you'll definitely be interested in. Number one, Donovan McMillan. Congratulations to him, as today he was bumped up by 247 Sports to a 4-star recruit. That was a no-brainer. That's going to happen by Rivals whenever they do their adjusted ratings too. You can't have 40-plus offers and the quality of offers that he has and still be a 3-star recruit. So that was just a matter of time until that happened, and that officially happened today. Another thing that happened today and interesting is that I was talking to a member of the McMillan household today, and I found out that Donovan and his family had a virtual interview, meeting, whatever you want to call it, with conversation with Pat Narduzzi and Corey Sanders, Pitt safety coach. And Pitt's not giving up on this guy. Pitt is all in on him. From what I hear, they are on him every day, possibly multiple times a day. They're in touch with this kid. They want him bad, but they know that they're going to have a lot of competition. LSU offered this week. Since the last time we talked, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, and I'm probably forgetting another school. It's going to be difficult, no question about it. We talked about that last time, but I think Pitt is ready for the fight with him. And just hearing that today, as far as there doesn't go a day doesn't go by that Donovan doesn't hear from somebody on Pitt, that's encouraging. And they know how what a huge piece he would be to their secondary for the future to replace either Paris Ford or DeMar Hamlin, and they want the guy. But so does a lot of other teams. And another thing that I found out today is if you're looking for him to make a decision anytime soon, that's not going to happen. Donovan needs to and wants to get on campus of these colleges. He's not going to be, while he might take a FaceTime call or whatever, virtual tour with some of these schools, he is not going to cut down his list. He's not going to decide his future college by this. He needs to see that in person. So, as was put today, his recruitment is in a standstill, and it's not going to really go anyplace until these restrictions are lifted. So don't look, it's not going to happen, him making a decision or even cutting down this list of 15, which you could probably throw out the window now since he received all these new offers. When you get an offer from Georgia and LSU after you made your top 15, obviously one or both of those schools are going to be on his list. So, somebody's going to be. I wouldn't doubt that he probably doesn't even come out with another list until he starts deciding to make official visits, because who knows who else, as I mentioned last show, who knows who else could offer. I'd be shocked if Ohio State doesn't jump in here at some point. With Georgia and LSU offering, I don't know what their situation is in the secondary, but it wouldn't shock me if Alabama gets in. So what's the use of making a top 15 when you're just or top 10 or whatever, and it doesn't mean anything. But what means something for Pitt is that they want him, and Pat Narduzzi, Corey Sanders, from what I was told today, had a good conversation with him, Donovan, and his father, and it was just very laid back. A lot of the same stuff they talked about, but that they've been talking about, but they wanted to stay in contact with him, and they're doing just that. That means with him being bumped to a 4-star recruit, we have 4 guys now that are in WPL's class of 2021 that are 4-star recruits. One of them's already committed to Pitt, Nakai Johnson. And you have Elliot Donald, McMillan and Derek Davis. Dorian Ford, he got an offer last week or over the weekend from Arkansas. I'm not sure if he's going to move up to that status. Could. He has an impressive offer list. Not sure that that's going to happen, but it could. But Ford's pretty good. And I'm always asked, I get messages on the Die Hard forum, I get direct messages from Pitt fans, how would I rank Pitt's chances of landing these guys? Who has the best chance? Who does Pitt have the best chance of landing? Obviously, they got Nakai Johnson, so he'd be number one. If I had to say number two, I'd obviously go Elliot Donald. Who knows what's actually really going on with him as far as his commitment to Pitt, but let's just say for conversation that he isn't committed. I would say that he's their second best chance. Then between McMillan, Davis, and Ford, if I had to pick, I would probably say, and I have to admit saying this, out of all the kids that I've talked to over the last couple of years, for whatever reason, I haven't been able to strike a chord with Dorian Ford. I don't know that he doesn't. He doesn't talk a lot with at least he doesn't talk a lot with us. Just keeps to himself. When I do trade messages with him, I get some stuff, but it's very infrequent, so I don't have a really good read on where he is. I do know, however, that he's very good friends with Johnson and Donald. So, does that mean he's going to go to Pitt? No, but I think they're going to have a chance at him. I think he has a lot of other big Power 5 offers. Does he want to break away from Matt Pack, or does he want to be a part of the hometown group and stick on this defense and be on a defensive line next to Donald and Johnson? If I had to pick number 3, I would go him. Then 4, I would say McMillan. I still like Pitt's chances with him. I'm not going to say they're the favorite, but I don't think they should be considered an underdog. I would put him at 4. And then the long shot that I would say that I just don't see it happening. I know Pitt's trying. I think they're trying behind the scenes, but they're dealing with the likes of Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan for the most part with Derek Davis. That's going to be a tough one. I would find it very shocking if he doesn't end up with Terry Smith and Penn State in their secondary. But stranger things have happened. Pitt's not going to give up until he makes a commitment. But if you're looking in that 5 order, I would go, as I said, Johnson, Donald, Ford, McMillan, Davis is number 5. Some of the other guys that are on the 6 through 10, if you want to call it that. Stephon Hall, that situation kind of surprises me a little bit. Pitt offered another safety today or yesterday, Michael Gravely from Cleveland. They've offered a lot of safeties. They want a guy to be paired with Javon McIntyre, one of their 2021 commits already. Kind of surprised Stephon Hall hasn't committed to Pitt yet. And when it happens this long, you wonder, is the offer committable? I'm just throwing things out there. It just shocks me. It surprises me that he hasn't committed to Pitt, and the fact that they're making all these other offers. So one guy on his team though that just remember this name down the line, depending on what happens. Could be like a Daquan Hardy situation from Penn Hills. Wouldn't shock me if I'm hearing a lot of good things about Miles Walker from Central Valley. He's a guy that I hear could be a really good defensive back, long arms, good hips. He's gotten 3 MAC offers so far. He's one of these guys that I think could explode as far as recruiting, and I think he's going to get impacted with no camps, and a lot of these guys that are on the fringe as far as being Power 5, D1 players. These summer camps, not having them this summer is going to impact a lot of players, and he's one of them. But I wouldn't be surprised late in the process if, depending maybe after the season, what their recruiting class looks like, if Pitt gets involved with Miles Walker. Just keep an eye on that. Two other things I want to bring up here, and this is Pitt basketball. The last time I talked, I thought that Pitt was going to get a commitment. Excuse me, need my sip of coffee. I'm going through withdrawal here. Kind of surprised, didn't get Trey Murphy, and I thought they were going to. I think a lot of people, maybe around the program, some basketball insiders thought he was going to end up at Pitt because of the opportunity there. He chose to instead go to Virginia and also be in the ACC. Hurts a little bit. They needed that, but you move on. Didn't get him, so you move on. But one guy that, some information here that very interesting to say the least, and I would put this, one thing that I try not to do in our reporting is, and I think I mentioned this last week, is that there's a big difference when a program reaches out and talks to a kid. That happens all the time. It shouldn't be considered big news. I don't try to hype it up as though they're going to land this kid, that they got a great shot at landing this kid. I'm just saying that they talked to him. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm not like one of these reporters that throw it out, oh, Pitt's going to get this guy because they... No, I'll characterize this right now. It is a long shot. However, I was told today, actually from his father, that Pitt spoke, had a virtual tour of the campus and a interview with 2025 star guard Karim Mani from Montreal. Big time prospect, 6'5", 200-pound guard that can play either point or the two guard. He's a guy that's he's also considering going to the NBA, so that should tell you about his talent level. He could be one of these guys that's a one and done in college. In general, I'm not a huge fan of that, but he's a guy that definitely, obviously, would help out Pitt's program. He spoke, him and his father spoke today with Jeff Capel. Last week, he did this also with Marquette. Yesterday, from when I was told today that he had a virtual tour with Michigan State and DePaul. Pitt's was today. I don't know if that means that those are his top four. He also took a tour with Maryland, so I don't know if Pitt's in the top five. However, his father did tell me that he was impressed with what Jeff Capel had to say to him today about the system they would be running with him. He showed him campus from the virtual tour, talked to him about the program, kids in the program, what Karim's role would be, and it was at point guard, which is kind of interesting. But, obviously if a kid like that wants to come here, you're going to do whatever you can to accommodate him, and I think that's what Pitt's doing. And the interesting thing is, another thing that stood out a little bit is he said that they do plan to talk again. So this wasn't, Pitt is in the running. Are they a strong contender? From what I hear, Marquette and Michigan State are probably the leaders. But his father did also tell me that there is no leader, and he doesn't have a favorite right now. So any talk that he's favoring Marquette, Michigan State, Maryland, whatever, isn't true, according to him, and that Pitt has as good a chance as anybody. We'll see how that happens or works out there. And last thing that I want to bring up is it's been reported that they're going to, the 24th? Today is the 15th. So next week, the NCAA, the head of the NCAA, is going to be talking about the transfer rule, meaning that any kid that wants to leave one time from a school can do that and not be penalized by sitting out a year. They're going to speak in session about it next week, and then they're going to vote on it in May. I was talking to a college basketball insider a couple days ago, and he told me that right now there's 800 transfers from the end of last season until now. 800 kids have decided to transfer from their programs. He said if this transfer rule takes effect and kids are allowed to leave without any penalty, it's going to be like the wild, wild west out there as far as it's going to be impossible for coaches to recruit in the long term, because the moment you get a kid mad, the moment you get a kid's parent mad, the kid can just up and leave, and it's going to get crazy. I'm not going to name the name, but I've already heard of a player on Pitt that some programs are interested in, and I'm not going to start the speculation, but there's a kid that some programs in the ACC are curious about, especially if this transfer rule comes into effect. So it's going to be crazy. I think that's the worst thing that's happened to college football and college basketball. I normally love college sports. It's my favorite. However, the transfer portal for football and this basketball, as I mentioned, 805 kids have transferred already. Entirely too much. It's crazy, but it's the world we live in. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Contribute to our Die Hard section if you can. Leave us comments. Get in the forum. Discuss. And if you anytime you have any questions, Brother, myself, Alan Saunders, Harry Paceris, Joe Staggerwald, whoever, leave it to us. We'll try to get back to you ASAP. And until next time, I appreciate you joining me for another edition of Pitt Panther Talk.